About 59% of all textiles come from polyester, and that's only set to grow. Industry is still quite addicted to virgin polyester, as this report shows. But I'm also shocked about the extent to which it's easy to be fooled by recycling claims. And this latest flagship industry solution of recycled polyester sounds really good, but is not addressing the microplastics problem. So this is something that Urska's going to go into just now, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from her. She's going to take us through it, what's in there, and what changing markets are calling for. So over to you, Urska, when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you for the introduction. Let me just pull up my PowerPoint presentation, and maybe you can give me a thumbs up if you can see it clearly. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining. Thank you, Laura. This was already a very good introduction. And as Laura said, we're talking about the microplastic pollution caused by the fashion industry today, and why it's so crucial to talk specifically about microplastic pollution as opposed to wider microfiber shedding is also because the fashion industry today is fundamentally a plastics industry. Nearly 70% of all fibers produced today are made from synthetics or plastic-based fibers. And as Laura mentioned, polyester accounts for 59% of global fiber production. Now, these fibers are made from fossil fuels, they're low cost, and we have polyester sort of as the champion of the fashion industry, which costs roughly half the price of cotton. It has also been almost entirely responsible for doubling the global fiber output since the year 2000. As you can see from this graph on the right side, polyester is the big pink chunk in the graph. So in other words, basically almost all of the fiber growth in the past 20 years has come from the production of polyester. And the projections show that the industry will increase its use in the future if we continue with business as usual. What has changed in the past decade or so is that the scrutiny over fashion's environmental impacts has grown. Brands have started developing sustainability strategies, but many of them are centered around so-called preferred or more sustainable fibers, where they have placed recycled polyester as a more responsible alternative. And what you can see from the claims here or the commitments is basically that many brands are already heavily relying on this solution. For many brands, recycled polyester already accounts for over 90% of their polyester use. And we have initiatives such as Textiles Exchange 2025 Recycled Polyester Challenge, through which over 100 brands committed to shift to recycled polyester, either partly or fully, by the end of last year. So basically the deadline was about a month ago. The problem is that many brands are kind of marketing recycled polyester as their main sustainability strategy. There's a lot of advertising as well, as you can see from this, where they're claiming that recycled polyester is a more responsible alternative that is reducing plastic waste, that is reducing industry's reliance on fossil fuel feedstocks, and claiming other environmental benefits. So what is actually the problem with recycled polyester? First of all, it has become a very convenient cover for the industry to claim that this is a way for them to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. But when looking at wider market trends, they actually show that, yes, while the volume of recycled polyester is growing, its share is actually decreasing because virgin polyester is growing much faster. So recycled polyester is not really reducing fashion's use of plastic. It's just made the system look greener while producing more. What we also know is that 98% of recycled polyester today comes from plastic bottles. This is a strategy that basically breaks closed loop recycling and instead uses bottles to downcycle them into clothes that shed microplastics and cannot effectively be recycled again. So clothes made from recycled polyester are more prone to be landfilled or incinerated. This concern of using bottles to make textiles has also been echoed by the beverage industry, which has been calling on the EU policymakers since 2021 to stop the downcycling of bottles into textiles and rather keep them in closed loop recycling systems. What we found is when we did our questionnaire to 50 of the biggest global fashion brands last year is that 82% of companies said they will eventually shift to this solution, meaning recycled polyester. And of course, the end product is still a plastic product that sheds microplastic throughout its entire lifetime when recycled polyester clothes are produced, when we wear them, when we wash them, when we throw them away. And microplastics have been identified as one of the most pervasive forms of pollution today. They're contaminating our waters, our soils, ending up in our food chains, and also there's increasing evidence of health risks connected to microplastics in our bodies. I will not go into health because Jeroen after me will dive into this topic. But we also know that synthetic textiles specifically are responsible for 35% of primary microplastics in our ocean today. Now, the reason we did this research is because despite all of this, recycled polyester is still sold as sort of a sustainability fix. So we wanted to look at also end-of-life impacts, specifically shedding behavior. So we tested 51 garments from 5 big fashion brands, and we tested for virgin versus recycled polyester alongside cotton and polyamide. So while these results are supposed to, present a snapshot of shedding behavior of clothes that we buy on the market today, they're also representative of wider industry trends because the way clothes are produced today is in long uniform runs. So one item is not necessarily representative of one piece, but of up to thousands of items in that batch. So we also used to widely recognize washing methods, which allowed us to answer the questions about how much these clothes shed, what is the fiber length, and what is the fiber mass loss. What we found was that recycled polyester on average sheds 55% more fibers than virgin polyester. So 12,000 versus 8,000 fibers per gram of fabric. We also found that these fibers from recycled polyester were 20% smaller, meaning they pose a higher environmental and health risk because they are better able to spread in the environment, enter the human body, and also penetrate deeper into tissues. Beyond just polyester, we found that recycled versions of both synthetic fibers, so meaning polyester and polyamide, they shed more than their virgin counterparts. When it comes to polyamide, it actually shed 3 times as much as virgin polyamide, which is not highly surprising because we also know that recycling weakens fiber structures and making it more prone to basically break into smaller pieces. Now, knowing that a large part of the industry is moving towards a solution that will increase fiber shedding by 55%, microplastic shedding by 55% is already concerning. But we also have reasons to believe that this may be an underestimate because we have faced some questions about recycled polyester claims, namely discrepancies when brands were initially, when we bought the items, claiming that those clothes were made from recycled polyester, and this was in the case of Shein. And then months later, these same items were marketed as just polyester. So there's a strong evidence that there are some misleading claims there. And this could also explain why the shedding rates we found with Shein items, for example, of recycled polyester were very similar to the shedding rates of virgin polyester. So once we took Shein items out of the recycled polyester sample, the gap in microplastic shedding between virgin and recycled actually widened from 55% to 72% more fiber release. So whether it's 55, whether it's 72, whether it's something in between, the key takeaways from this study are that, the fashion's main sustainability strategy and actually the main response to environmental problems is not only breaking the recycling loop by using bottles to make them into clothes, but it's actually worsening microplastic pollution. And what we found from the questionnaire I mentioned that we did last year with the 50 global fashion brands is that most of the industry is focusing on filtering the pollution instead of, stopping it at the source. And for sure, we can have better design and manufacturing technologies, and we can have better end-of-pipe solutions such as washing machine filters or guppy bags that, capture a part of those microplastics. But these solutions will only take us so far and are not really efficient in the long term because no amount of fiber optimization or filtration technologies will be able to eliminate the microplastic pollution caused by the fashion industry and also keep pace with the growing production of plastic-based fibers that we are currently witnessing. So if we want effective solution, fashion brands need to actually not only manage the microplastic pollution at the end of life, they need to actually address the production of synthetics in the first place. So I will wrap up here, but I invite you all to have a look at our report. You can find it on this link, or if you go to our fossil fashion website page on our Changing Market website, you can find it there as well. Thank you.
That's great, Urskan. Let's allow people to just take a minute now to take in what you've said. I know you have so much more to say. There's so much more in that report, but don't worry, we'll get back to it afterwards in the Q&A, I'm sure, including all your recommendations and so on. So folks, maybe you could finish off your notes, or maybe AI is taking notes for you, but maybe also you want to think about a question you could put in the Q&A box. Also, you could just take a deep breath and roll your shoulders and relax a little bit. So we just take this pause to resist the constant fastness and just slow down. We're going to move on in just a moment now to Jeroen. And he's been very good. They've all been very good in terms of taking the time to prepare themselves. So let's give something back by giving a bit of our presence to what they have to say. So Jeroen, when you're ready, maybe you could put your camera on and your mute off and go ahead.
All right. Can everybody hear me correctly?
Yeah.
Or? Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, there we go. Hi, I'm Jeroen Dagenvos from Plastic Soup Foundation, based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, head of programs, and I have a background in environmental science. And I'm involved in the topic of plastic for about 15 years now, and microfibers, from fashion and clothes about for 15 years, or 10 years, sorry. And one of the questions that I get a lot is how big is the problem of microplastic actually? And the thing is, the vast majority of the plastic problem is actually invisible. Like plastic in the ocean, most of it is actually not visible. It's microplastic or not even floating, but going to the ocean bottom. So we actually see only the tip of the iceberg, and that's also happening with microfibers from clothes. Actually, at the first moments, one of the first people who brought the whole thing to a broader public, microfibers in estuaries, was Mike Anthony Brown in 2011 already. And he found many microfibers in estuaries, and he started actually calculating how much microfibers are shedded from a synthetic garment, and he found about 1,900 fibers per garment. So that was a starting point that was actually debunked quite soon when more research became available. About 700,000 microfibers per 6 kilogram wash from University of Plymouth research. And I also was involved with the EU-funded Mermaids project in 2014. And that found about 9 million microfibers per 5 kilogram wash on average. And that are microplastics and not the nanoplastics. So the amount of shedding of microplastics was really big, and that actually explained why we found so many fibers in the environment. And of course, we're talking about washing and getting microplastics in water systems, but it also the same thing happens with microfibers. In cities. So actually microfibers coming from the air. And Paris is a famous study. And I found it's raining plastic. So that was a nice headline. But then again, it was about 1.5 microplastic fibers per square cubic meter of, I forgot the name, but per 1,000 liter of air, 1.5 microfiber. But indoors it was about 60 fibers. So indoor concentrations were actually higher. And this is a picture of Professor Barbara Melchert from the University of Groningen. She also presented during one of the previous Changing Markets sessions. She actually made the point of most of the fibers indoors are actually from plastic. And we have a lot of dust in our homes, so about 20 kilograms of dust. That's 2 to 5 times higher than outdoors. And most people spend most of their time, about 90%, indoors. And it's not only about how much plastic do you get into your how much are you exposed to microplastics. There's a difference between adults and infants. The amount of microplastics to infants is much higher. They're just eating everything, tasting everything with their hands, low to the ground where there's a lot of dust. So there's a big increase in microplastic exposure over there. And then of course you talk about what kind of sources are there. Where do the microplastics come from? The domestic laundry and also dryers especially are known as important sources. There were some tests already done with how many microfibers are released in the air from a dryer. And it's about almost 2 microplastics per 1,000 liters of indoor air. So there's an exposure. But of course, one of the biggest sources is actually also the clothes you're wearing. During wearing, it's not just washing where you lose microfibers. Most of the tear and wear of your clothes is actually happening once you're wearing your clothes. And when you're wearing plastic clothes, you're losing microfibers. So that's quite clear. And many of the clothes are actually polyester, as the previous speaker already mentioned. And of course, high concentrations, big exposure to microplastics indoors is higher. but especially in places where, like factories of clothes, concentrations are really much higher. There's the sewing and cutting of the garments. So there's a lot of microplastic released over there in the environment. And that was also tested, like a research from 2025. Indoor concentrations went up to 70,000 microplastics per 1,000 liters. So much higher than in an average household or outdoors. Most of those microplastics were actually really small. 97% of them were smaller than 500 nanometers. So, talking about health risks, well, people working in these conditions, there's definitely, a health risk over there. So that's something that should be better investigated in the future. Because, when you're talking about microplastics in health, what do we know? What do we not know? Is it plausible there's a link? And that's something we started talking about as Plastic Soup Foundation actually quite a while already. We published a report in 2022, Do Clothes Make Us Sick? So we collected scientific publications about what do we know about the link between our clothes, the microfiber shedding, and possible health risks. And then you start talking especially about exposure. That's where most of the research is being done. Epidemiology studies are still very scarce. Nevertheless, there are many links to specific organs where microplastics or microfibers are found. So you see a small picture here where with different organs where plastic was found. And it's good to realize that the techniques to measure the microplastics, it's very new, especially in the body. It's very difficult in the environment. It's even more difficult inside the body, and especially when you're talking about nanoplastics. So there's evidence it's there. Since 2022, it's possible to detect nanoplastics in human blood. So that was a really new study. And that's also something we asked attention for to the world. So you see here a picture of the Plastic Health Summit we organized in 2019, again in 2021, and then scientists could explain what were their scientific findings about the microplastics, and is there a relation with human health? And we actually had also speakers there explaining there was a reaction of lung tissue exposed to nylon particles, and there was lung development was actually being decreased or even stopped in some certain circumstances. And then this happened last week, a bombshell, exclusive. Some scientists say detection of microplastics, it's a joke. Well, my first impression was, interesting. This is someone working for a big plastic company. But at the same time, I also saw many studies that are, how reliable are the studies? So it's a good discussion. I think it's also something that needs to proceed. Let scientists have the discussion. That's very good. And it's very difficult and very important to have, if you're measuring microplastics, to have enough blanks. Be very careful because plastic is everywhere. Plastic pollution is just happening. I can remember the first fish from the North Sea samples that were analyzed, and concentrations were sky high, and then they dropped because they realized there was pollution from the laboratory. So it was something of a relief, and at the same time also realization, even a laboratory is polluted with microplastics. So that's also scary. This is Thijs Margie, and there was also a debate about, is plastic actually getting into your brain? She measured that there's inhalation through the nose. So plastic fibers get through your nose directly through the olfactory, past the olfactory bulb, and get in your brain. And then I will show you this small clip too.
Jeroen, I don't know if it's me, but I can't hear it.
Oh, then it's not working. I will pause it. I think that the video clip went wrong with the sound, but Thijs Margie is actually explaining that there's a relation with that she saw microplastics, microfibers getting into brain tissue. For her it was also an alarming sound, because if microplastics can pass into the brain, yeah, that's an indication that nanoplastics exposure is even bigger. Here you see a picture of Heather Leslie. She's actually the researcher that led the team here in the University of Amsterdam to the plastic in human blood. And she also yeah, made a new study of exploring everyday microplastic exposures. This report from Plastic Soup Foundation will come out very soon. It's almost ready. And then she collected all evidence actually about exposure to micro and nanoplastics and bundled it. And it's an extensive collection. And yeah, for her, it's very clear that we are exposed to micro nanoplastics on a daily basis. It's literally everywhere. It's very plausible there are also relations with human health. And of course, we need more research to really prove it. And that will take epidemiology studies, which take a lot of time. So yeah, we don't know everything yet. At the same time, we know quite a bit. A lot is coming up. EU Horizon projects are already running, and new ones are going to start this year. I mentioned the Momentum research. That's a consortium of universities and research institutes in the Netherlands doing research on microplastics and human health. That's very interesting, I think. And at the same time, it's also a little bit of history repeating. I mean, new techniques, new findings of chemical substances in the environment. Yeah, and then it's always difficult in the beginning. In the beginning, it was very difficult to measure flame retardants or heavy metals or whatever. Science will improve, and we will know better in the future. So I'm quite optimistic we will know much more, yeah, in the next couple of years. So yeah, no need to wait and go into the action zone. We developed an app, the Impact from Your Pockets. It's a plastic-free future app. It scans for now cosmetics, so you scan the ingredients and it'll tell you directly, hey, it's plastic-free or not. But we're going to increase it not just for cosmetics, but we are also going to add clothes and fashion. So you can easily scan the label of your clothes, and it will directly tell you if it's plastic or not, and it will also make better suggestions. So plastic-free stuff, because that's really one of the takeaways I want to give to people. Don't go for fast fashion, ultra fast fashion, high exposure of micro nanoplastics from your clothes. It's an avoidable source, and you don't need to wait till we know everything. So yeah, go on and avoid fast fashion. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeroen. Super clear. And once again, let's just allow all those on this call to just take a minute to finish up your thinking on that. Maybe put a question. Please put the questions into the Q&A box, not the chat box. It's proving difficult because a lot of comments come through in the chat, and then it's hard to distinguish the questions. So that'd be really good. Nice number of questions coming through there, so that's great. And we're going to very slowly, as we run through this, we're going to move over now to Sarah from Pew Charitable Trusts, and Sarah is our final speaker. Sarah, thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Laura. And I believe Joe's just going to load my slides. And thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Borch from the Pew Charitable Trusts, and I will be sharing some of the results from a study we published at the end of last year, Breaking the Plastic Wave 2025. And this is an expanded 5-year follow-up to a 2020 report, which provides new insights on the breadth of plastic pollution problem and strategies for change. We produced this report with the support of ICF International and 4 thought partner organisations, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, Imperial College London, Systemic, and the University of Oxford. Thank you. Despite growing attention to plastic pollution over the last 5 years, we find that the trajectory has barely shifted. If we carry on as we are, annual plastic pollution will more than double in the next 15 years, increasing from 130 million metric tonnes in 2025 to 280 million metric tonnes by 2040. This is the equivalent of 1 garbage truck worth of plastic every second going into our environment by 2040. Business as usual is simply an untenable trajectory. This increase in plastic pollution, sorry, if we could just go back a slide. This increase in plastic pollution is primarily driven by rapidly growing production and use of plastic that will further overwhelm already strained waste management systems. Over the next 15 years, plastic production will rise twice as fast as our capacity to manage it, leading to a widening gap between what is produced and what is collected and managed. The impact of the plastic system extends beyond pollution. Plastic can harm human health at every stage of its life cycle. We found that by 2040, plastic production and waste alone could be responsible for 9.8 million years of healthy life lost globally, a 75% rise from today's levels. This means that productivity and quality of life are affected due to illness, disability, or even premature death. Due to data availability, we didn't incorporate the health impacts arising from plastic use or from microplastics into our analysis. But as speakers that have already gone before have mentioned, these are likely to be significant. Next slide, please. Thank you. Microplastics pose a particular challenge. They originate from a diverse range of sources, and their small size makes them difficult to capture and virtually impossible to clean up once in the environment. Our study looked at 7 key sources, of which the largest sources are tyres and paint, followed by agriculture and recycling, and then pellets, textiles, and personal care products. Without action, microplastic pollution will grow by 50% to 25 million metric tons by 2040. And in high-income economies, microplastic pollution makes up the vast majority of their overall plastic pollution footprint. Despite these troubling trajectories, there is hope. By applying existing solutions, both upstream and downstream, it's possible to cut overall plastic pollution by 83% by 2040. When we look specifically at microplastics, we found that by applying policies and solutions across the life cycle, including reducing use of plastics, improving product design to reduce shedding rates, and improving wastewater capture, it's possible to cut microplastic pollution by 41%, but also that more innovation is needed to tackle the unsolved pollution that remains. For textiles, the picture is more optimistic, and we found that by applying upstream and downstream interventions, it's feasible to cut pollution from this source by 85%. And of the actions that we modelled, improving product design was the most effective policy lever, accounting for half of the cuts in microplastic pollution from textiles. Overall, 3 key strategies can dramatically reduce microplastic pollution from textiles, including, firstly, reducing demand for synthetic fabrics, such as by increasing the durability of clothing, discouraging fast fashion, or expanding the use of natural fibres. Secondly, mandatory product design requirements that use best practices to produce textiles with lower shed rates. And thirdly, filtration of wastewater, including, importantly, the wastewater from production facilities, which contribute a significant portion of emissions across the life cycle. Combined, these actions can substantially reduce microplastic pollution over a garment's life cycle. In conclusion, implementing changes across the plastic system would yield huge benefits for our environment, our economies, and for human health. And if we do, we can solve this problem within a generation. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And it's great to hear someone say, yes, we can, and that things are possible. Yeah, obviously a lot has to be done to do that reduction of production and use, as well as the design and wastewater capture. But thank you for finishing that off on a positive note. So folks, we're going to very slowly go into the questions and answers, and I've got about 10 questions here in front of me, and I've been checking with our speakers who'd like to answer what. Maybe now that Sarah is finished, she can take a look and see if there's something that's for her, perhaps. And so I'm going to go first to Urska, who is going to answer that first question there from Frédéric Mongodin. do fast fashion garments release more microplastics than traditional synthetic clothing in your experience, or is that very similar?
Yes. So, I mean, it's tough to say what is traditional, because I would argue today fast fashion is almost traditional. But as you can see, we tested the clothing of 5 brands, and these brands are not only some of the biggest global fashion brands, but are also some of the biggest users of polyester fiber globally, and that makes the findings also highly relevant for the industry as a whole. What we did find was that there was a very small difference between brands, showing that the level of microfiber shedding, is not just like limited to few bad companies, but it's more a system-wide problem. So what traditional means, whether this is, more high-end or luxury brands, they might be using slightly different yarns or finishes, manufacturing, but they still rely on the same recycling processes, on the same synthetics, and in many cases, what we found from our previous research, also same suppliers. So I would say that makes our results quite indicative of where the wider industry is moving, and it's not only pointing to isolated cases of these 5 companies.
That's great. Thanks, Urska. And maybe while you're there's another question a little further down. In fact, it's 3 questions, and I don't know if you have time to go to all the 3s, but it's from Thomas Grabner. And I see it's quite long to read out. Maybe you can see if there's one you could focus on within that. Came in at 1601.
Opening the different windows.
That's all right.
Let me just read it, Thomas, about man-made cellulosics. Well, we have been looking at viscose specifically for a very long time, and it's true that we do see it as a potential sustainable alternative to synthetics. That said, there are many problems in the viscose supply chain, from deforestation to when viscose is not produced in closed loop and chemicals are released in the environment. That can be problematic. But we see that a lot of the sector has moved towards responsible viscose production. So if that is the case, it can be a better alternative to synthetics. And the question whether, but I just want to also kind of flag that we do not want, a swap of one fiber for the other. We don't want to be producing fashion in the same way, meaning producing any fiber at these volumes that we're producing synthetics is not sustainable. So what we would ideally like to see is less quantity, better quality. And fast fashion, of course, is highly reliant on synthetics today. In terms of health risks associated with the shedding of natural fibers, I will let Jeroen answer, but of course, I do want to say that we know that the chemical treatment and finishing processes can, of course, affect also the behavior of natural fibers, and that also deserves attention. But at the same time, this should not take away from the discussion that synthetics are a problem as well. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Urska. Let's see if Jeroen would like to jump in on that part 3 of that question.
Yeah, well, about the health risks of microfibers. I mean, it's research is really new, so it's difficult to say if you have a different different material, or the results of the risks are lower. At the same time, we saw that especially from nylon particles and the additives coming from those particles, they have an impact on the development of lungs, for example. That's quite clear, and multiple models, scientists are working with that. So they see there's a relation. So be careful over there. At the same time, if you look at how much microfibers are released, and that are the bigger parts that are easily measurable, There are also the smaller, the nanoplastic pieces. They can actually enter the lung. Yeah, that is you just don't want that plastic in your lungs. And of course, we need to wait till we know precisely what is happening if you're exposed to high concentrations of micro nanoplastics for 10, 20 years. Yeah, you can actually start measuring effects in humans. But we already know from animal tests, that there's an effect, of course, with high doses and all true. But at the same time, it's not something, take it easy. I mean, it's where you can avoid, you should avoid. And especially if you're talking about particles that are non-degradable in a body and actually are also we do find them over there. So be careful.
Yeah. And maybe, Jeroen, while you're there, there's a question here, the second one. Is there anything that can be done to scrutinize clothing manufacturers for lack of information given to consumers, for example, Shein, for possible mislabeling of recycled or virgin polyester?
Yeah, I think information for consumers, that's really, it's critical, it's key. And of course, there's a label in the garment. How correct is it? So that's actually the first question. And the second thing is actually that people have no idea what actually polyester or polyamide or what it all means, and then all the brand names that can also be created for new materials. So more information is definitely needed. And about shedding, I know I saw many. It's great. Changing Markets is now testing quite a bit of fashion garments, how much microplastics are released. But I know that a lot of companies are doing exactly the same thing. They have the reports. I saw them. I had to sign NDAs for it, so I could not share anything with it. Yeah, there should be much more transparency, and they should be more open about. I have a T-shirt. How much fibers are released, or how long can I wear this T-shirt before its end of life? And that kind of information should be available. And I think it should also be implemented in the digital product passport and then be translated to consumers. So you do have a choice. At the moment, it's very hard to make a correct choice. Even if a garment is of high quality from polyester, I don't know. So my advice now is don't buy it. If there's better information, well, maybe you can consider don't buy the low quality. But now it's just a black box. You just have to assume that a higher price is better, and that's not always the case.
Thank you for that, Jeroen. Super clear. I want to also bring in Sarah. And Sarah, you were talking about product design. There's a question here. What exactly do you mean by improving product design? Don't know if you saw that there.
Thank you, Laura. Happy to take that question. There's many studies that have been published already that show there's a wide range in the amount of microplastic shedding from different products that are put on the market. So this demonstrates that there is also a lot of scope for improvement. And some manufacturers are testing different design changes. So that can include different fabric blends, different weaving, and different finishing processes. And these all show that these can significantly influence the amount of microplastics that they shed across their life cycle.
That's great. Yes. Thank you. I'm going to go a bit more open and just see to the three speakers. Are there more questions here? I see some, for example, on possible regulation. Where is that one gone? What are you proposing to policymakers, for example?
I can maybe start and say, this is a very timely discussion as the eco-design regulation has been adopted, but the criteria is still being discussed. So a way to address this through eco-design is to kind of require mandatory pre-market shedding tests, add emission limits to the finished products, ask for basically explicit warnings on items made from synthetic textiles, also mandate industrial pre-washing. But these are all solutions that kind of just, regulate or, partly limit maybe the microplastic pollution coming from synthetics. What we are actually actively pushing for is also to have a tax on virgin plastic materials to level the playing field, knowing that majority of production today is synthetics, and it's a big driver of fast fashion, meaning low quality clothes that ends up as waste. And another way to address it through legislation is also through the recently adopted Waste Framework Directive, by having eco-modulated fees linked to the volume, which is already being discussed, but also to microplastic release. And just another thing about, less about limiting, but about communicating is, the long-awaited Green Claims Directive, which should address and kind of prohibit the future marketing of recycled polyester as a sustainable solution, which is still something that, is widely present and should not be the case.
Great, thank
Sorry,
you.
and just if I can answer one question about the chemical versus mechanical recycling. Indeed, we didn't distinguish this from, as a design, but 98% of recycled polyester is made from bottles, meaning mechanically recycled. So it does present mostly shedding from that technology. And I also want to just flag that in many cases, when you're buying items online or even in the store, there's very little information about what recycling technology is being used by that brand for that item, but we can assume that this is mechanically recycled.
Great, thank you, Urska. And just as you finished your sentence, somebody wrote, "Thanks for the great job you are doing." So just hang on to that thought. Folks, I don't assume you've the answers to all these questions, but I think we have time for a couple more. Would anyone have anything to say on whether there's any information about whether textile to textile recycled poly sheds less? Perhaps not on this call, and one to follow up on later, which can also be done.
Just to say, we haven't tested for that, and I'm not aware of any research that has specifically tested, knowing also that, less than 1 or 2% of textiles are actually made from fiber to fiber recycling, but it would be interesting to actually look at that in the future.
Great, thank you, Urska. Yeah, I see that there's quite a few more. There's some people coming in terms of alternatives, for example, wool. Is there anything to encourage the production of clothes from wool, or indeed others? Does anyone have anything to add on that?
It's more like, that's a great idea to use more wool or alternative materials. And at the same time, it's also a question about how much clothes are we actually buying and the whole system behind it. The amount of clothes we have in our closet is increasing in crazy numbers if you compare it with now and 10, 20 years ago. And if you go even further back, I mean, we had a saying in the Netherlands, on your Eastern best. So that was the only moment in the year you bought some new clothes, and that was it. And of course, that's 70, 80 years ago. But now you just buy 10 T-shirts and you pick the nice one, and the other 9 go directly into the garbage bin. And they are recycled, but they go to Africa for secondhand use. They cannot use it anymore, and it's dumped on a beach. I mean, it's becoming very visible, and overconsumption, doing too much. And I think that's also a great argument. That's why I think about the wool. You buy something, it's more expensive, but it's for your life almost. I mean, you can really use it for years, and it's really something with meaning and not something you just use for a season and then you throw it away. So the throwaway living we have for single-use plastics, clothes are also becoming single-use, and that's really wrong. So if we can ban that, we are doing a great job, I think.
Great, thanks, Ewan. And I think that ties up really well with what Sarah was saying with the first line is you've got to reduce the use and the production. And the Easter best in the Netherlands is called the Sunday best in Ireland, and it's the same principle. Folks, I want to give you a minute each just to close off. Is there anything that you didn't get to say, whether across the questions or indeed in relation to the evidence that you've been working on? Perhaps we could go backwards. Sarah, is there anything you'd like to add in closing?
Thank you, Laura. I think I'd just add there's clear evidence that it is feasible to change this significant source of microplastic pollution and to dramatically decrease it. And I would echo Urska in highlighting the the opportunity within Europe currently under the eco design regulation, and encourage everyone to participate in that consultation and share their views as part of that. And hopefully then we can see the policy change that leads to a significant reduction in this source.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Jeroen.
Yeah, well, I think the opportunity to do it different is, or we can do it different, and we should do it different, and it's something we need to explain to more people and involve more people, and make a system change. I mean, that's really what is at stake here. It can be done. It's actually better. It's I think it's also the whole marketing also with companies, new opportunities to do it different and do it better. That's where I would like to go.
Great, thank you very much. And Urska?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm very happy to see such a large audience, because I think the key here is just also to raise awareness about the false solutions on the market today. And I think recycled polyester has really become some sort of a sustainability story that is delaying real change. And I want to encourage anyone to kind of translate this into whatever purchasing choices that you've got from this, but also for fashion brands, those that really are serious about pollution should actually start reducing their plastic production. And I hope we'll see more and more of that in the future. We have already some brands on board that have committed to phase out synthetics, and I hope that these are just few, that the others will follow.
Great, thank you so much, Urska. And my apologies that we didn't get to all the questions, but as Urska just said, there was huge interest in this webinar, and if you want to channel your questions through afterwards, there's a very lively social media at Changing Markets. I'm sure they'd be happy to engage in the conversation further. So what I'm hearing from our three speakers is this is really possible to do, to reduce and to do things differently, and we really need to keep this awareness going. So I look forward to seeing more work from all three of your organizations on this, because again, really feel, and I think a lot of people on this call will share that sentiment, that more people need to know about this in order to put the pressure on for this to move. So I really hope that reports don't just become reports and really get people out there and bring an awareness, a reality check, and really help more corporations to sort of kick that drug that is synthetic fibres, and really the dangerous farce that is recycled polyester. So you could spread this report and also keep an eye out for further reports and events with Changing Markets, and we'll look forward to seeing you there on the next one. I'll just check, have we shared the report in the chat? We have. Excellent, that's great. So with that, I just want to say thanks to everybody for turning up for this, and really appreciate the feedback on it being valuable and insightful. I certainly thought that too. So hold on to that feedback, Urska, Jeroen and Sarah, and have a lovely rest of the day. See you now.
All right.
Thank you, bye.